The wind in Chicago cut right through you that night. It wasn't just cold, it was disrespectful. I was standing in the middle of the hallway in the house I paid the mortgage on, shivering, but not from the draft. I was shivering from the look on my husband's face. Malik was sitting on the stairs, scrolling on his phone like he was checking football scores instead of ending our marriage. He didn't even look up when he spoke. "It's over, Naya," he said, his voice smooth and detached. "Ain't no point in dragging this out. You know it, I know it." This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. I stared at him, trying to make sense of the man I was looking at. He was 3 years older than me, but right then he looked like a stranger. "Over?" I choked out, my hands trembling by my sides. "Malik, I just put the down payment on your new office space last week. I just paid off your student loans. You waited until the checks cleared to tell me we're done?" Malik finally looked up. His eyes were empty. No guilt, no sadness, just business. He stood up, brushing lint off his custom suit, a suit I bought him for his birthday. "Look, Malia," he said, walking past me to the door. "You helped me out, and I appreciate that, but people grow apart. I'm moving into a different tax bracket now, and honestly, you don't fit the aesthetic anymore. You're good for the struggle, but you ain't built for the success." That sentence hit me harder than a physical slap. I had worked double shifts. I had eaten instant noodles so he could eat steak. I had built my credit score just to ruin it funding his dreams. And now that he had made it, I was just a placeholder he was ready to swap out. "Get out," he said, opening the front door. The rain was coming down sideways outside. "I'll wire you enough cash for a hotel and a bus ticket. Consider it a severance package." Before I could scream, the kitchen door swung open. Malik's mother, Mama Joyce, walked in. She was wiping her hands on a dish towel, looking at me with that same sneer she'd had since the day we met. She never thought I was good enough for her golden child, even though I was the one funding his lifestyle. "Is she still here?" Mama Joyce snapped, not even addressing me directly. "Malik, I told you to handle this hours ago. Vanessa is coming over to measure the drapes." Vanessa, his ex-girlfriend from college, the one who wouldn't give him the time of day when he was broke. "I'm leaving," I whispered, my pride finally kicking in, "but I'm taking my things." Mama Joyce laughed. It was a dry, cruel sound. "Your things? Honey, anything in this house was bought with my son's potential. You don't own nothing here." She marched to the pantry and came back holding a black, heavy-duty garbage bag. She threw it at my feet with a wet thud. "I packed for you," she said, smirking. "It's all trash anyway, just like your attitude. Take your garbage and get out of my son's house." Malik didn't say a word. He just watched. Mama Joyce stepped forward, grabbed my arm with a grip like iron, and shoved me toward the open door. I stumbled, tripping over the threshold, and fell hard onto the wet concrete of the porch. "And don't come back begging when that little job of yours fails," Mama Joyce shouted over the rain. "We done with charity cases." The door slammed shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I was soaked instantly. The freezing rain mixed with the hot tears running down my face. I had nothing. No car keys, no coat, just the clothes on my back and the black plastic bag lying in a puddle next to me. I sat there for a long time, just shaking, unable to move. Eventually, I reached for the bag. I expected to find my old hoodies, maybe some shoes they didn't want. Humiliation washed over me as I untied the knot with numb fingers. Mama Joyce wanted to embarrass me last time. She wanted me to feel like garbage. But when I pulled the plastic open and looked inside, I stopped breathing. The rain kept falling, but I didn't feel it anymore. Because what was inside that trash bag wasn't clothes, and it definitely wasn't garbage. I stared at the contents of the bag, blinking against the rain. At first glance, it looked exactly like what Mama Joyce said it was: trash. It was filled with old receipts, a few of my faded t-shirts she must have pulled from the donation pile, and a pair of worn-out sneakers I hadn't seen in years. I felt a fresh wave of humiliation. She really did just want to kick me while I was down. I was about to zip it back up and leave it there when my hand brushed against something hard tucked inside one of the sneakers. It felt like a book. I pulled it out. It was a thick, leather-bound journal wrapped tightly in plastic wrap to keep it dry. Taped to the front was a plain white envelope. I didn't recognize the journal. I ripped the plastic off with freezing fingers and tore open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper written in shaky, cursive handwriting. "My dear Nia," it began. I froze. I knew that handwriting. It belonged to Nana Rose, Malik's grandmother. She was the only person in that house who ever treated me like a human being, but she had been bedridden and nonverbal after a stroke for the last 6 months. Or so I thought. If you are reading this, then Joyce has finally done what she's been threatening to do since the day you married my grandson. She thinks I'm just a sick old woman who sleeps all day. She forgets that people say the most truth when they think no one is listening. I've been watching, baby. I've been listening to Malik and his mother plotting in the kitchen while they thought I was asleep. They planned to leave you with nothing, but I know who really built this family's fortune. My heart started pounding so hard it drowned out the sound of the rain. I flipped the page. In this journal is everything, every account number, every password, and every lie they told. I couldn't stop them from putting you out, but I could make sure you didn't leave empty-handed. They think this bag is full of your old junk. They don't know I swapped the contents. Look at the last page. I turned to the back of the journal. There was a bank deposit slip dated 3 days ago. The account was in my name, Nia Williams. The balance? $2.5 million. I gasped, covering my mouth. This had to be a hallucination. $2.5 million? That was nearly everything Malik had just secured in his big merger. Nana Rose hadn't just watched, she had moved the money. I sat there on the cold pavement, clutching the journal to my chest, my mind racing back to where this all started, before the rain, before the millions, and before the betrayal. I met Malik 5 years ago at a small coffee shop in downtown Atlanta. Back then, he wasn't wearing custom suits. He was wearing a frayed hoodie and carrying a laptop that only worked if you held the charger at a specific angle. I was working as a shift manager at a logistics company, tired but stable. Malik was charming, full of big words and even bigger dreams about a tech startup that would revolutionize the industry. He told me he just needed a break. He told me he needed someone to believe in him. And I, being young and foolishly open-hearted, decided to be that person. We got married at the courthouse. No reception, no guests, just us and a promise. I kept my job, picking up extra shifts on weekends to cover our rent because Malik wanted to pour every cent into his business, Nexus Flow. I didn't mind. I believed in the vision. I believed in us. When his car broke down, I let him drive mine and I took the bus. When he needed new servers for his coding, I drained my savings account. When his mother, Mama Joyce, got into debt with some loan sharks, I paid it off quietly so Malik wouldn't stress. I cooked, I cleaned, and I balanced the books for his company at night after working 10 hours at my own job. I never asked for credit. I never asked for a salary. I thought marriage was a partnership. I thought we were building a legacy. And for a while, it seemed like we were winning. Nexus Flow started getting contracts. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. Malik's mood improved. He started talking about buying a house, about taking care of me. I thought we had made it. But I should have paid closer attention to the signs. Success doesn't change people, it unmasks them, and the mask Malik had been wearing was starting to slip long before he kicked me out into the rain. I just didn't want to see it. The change started with the little things. He stopped asking about my day. He started locking his phone. And then there were the late-night meetings that smelled like expensive perfume and secrets. I told myself he was just stressed. I told myself I was being paranoid. But as I sat there in the rain, clutching Nana Rose's journal, I realized I hadn't been paranoid enough. The betrayal didn't happen overnight. It had been happening right in front of my face, funded by my own paycheck. I wiped the water from my eyes and looked at the house one last time. The lights were warm and inviting in the living room where Malik and Mama Joyce were probably celebrating my exit. They thought the game was over. They thought they had won. I stood up, gripping the trash bag. They had no idea that by throwing me out, they had just handed me the weapon that would destroy them. But as I turned to walk away, my phone buzzed with a notification that made my blood run cold. It wasn't from the bank. It was an email from Malik's account, sent to the entire family, and it included a picture that made me realize this wasn't just about money, it was about ruin. I stood under the awning of a closed barbershop, staring at my phone screen until my vision blurred. The email was from Malik, sent to everyone we knew, our families, our mutual friends, even the pastors at our church. The subject line read, "Regarding Naya and the future of Mex's flow." I opened the attachment, and my stomach dropped all the way to my shoes. It was a photo of me at the ATM from 2 weeks ago, withdrawing cash to pay his mother's gambling debt. But the caption didn't say that. It read, "It breaks my heart to do this, but I have to protect my company. Naya has been caught embezzling funds from Nexus Flow to support a secret addiction. I'm asking for privacy as we separate. Please pray for her." Addiction? Embezzling? I let out a scream that got lost in the thunder. The audacity of this man! He wasn't just kicking me out, he was burning my reputation to the ground so that when I tried to tell the truth, nobody would believe me. He was painting me as a thief to cover his own tracks. I checked my socials. I was already blocked by 3 of his cousins. The narrative was setting like concrete. I couldn't go to my parents. They lived 3 states away, and I didn't have the gas money to get there. I needed somewhere safe, somewhere Malik wouldn't think to look. I dialed the one person who had warned me about Malik from day one. "Jasmine," I said when she picked up, my voice cracking. "You were right. You were right about everything." 20 minutes later, Jasmine pulled up in her beat-up Honda Civic. She didn't ask questions. She just popped the trunk for my trash bag, wrapped a blanket around me, and drove me to her apartment on the south side. Jasmine's place was small, a 1-bedroom walk-up that smelled like cocoa butter and sage, but it felt safer than the mansion I had just been thrown out of. She made me hot tea while I sat on her couch, still shivering, clutching Nana Rose's journal like a lifeline. "So let me get this straight," Jasmine said, sitting across from me, her eyes wide. "He kicks you out in the rain, frames you for stealing his money that you helped him make, and moves Vanessa the same night?" I nodded. "And Mama Joyce gave me this trash bag as a parting gift." "That woman is evil," Jasmine hissed. "But what's in the book, Naya?" I took a deep breath and opened the journal to the bookmark Nana Rose had left. It wasn't just bank accounts, it was a diary of everything she had overheard while pretending to be asleep. I started reading aloud. October 12th. Malik brought a lawyer to the house today. They are setting up a shell company called Titan Holdings. He plans to transfer the intellectual property of Nexus Flow to Titan, leaving the main company bankrupt in case Naya ever asks for half in a divorce. I flipped the page. November 4th. Vanessa came over for dinner. They laughed about how Naya works double shifts. Malik said, "Let her work. She's paying for the honeymoon she ain't never gonna go on." Jasmine slammed her hand on the table. "Oh, hell no. We are burning his life down tonight." "Wait," I said, pointing to a sticky note on the next page. "Look at this." Nana Rose had written a date, Saturday the 15th. That was 2 days from now. Underneath, she had written, "The launch party. He planned to announce the acquisition by Titan Holdings and introduce Vanessa as his new CFO. The press will be there." A cold calm washed over me. The tears stopped. Malik thought I was broken. He thought I was somewhere crying in a motel room, ashamed of a crime I didn't commit. He thought he had erased me. But he forgot one thing. He was the face of the company, but I was the one who did the books. I knew where the bodies were buried because I was the one who bought the shovels, unknowingly at the time. "Jasmine," I said, my voice steady for the first time all night, "do you still have that friend who works in AV at the convention center?" Jasmine grinned, a slow, dangerous smile. "You know I do." "Good," I said, closing the journal, "because Malik wants a show. He wants to make an announcement. I think we should help him make it unforgettable." I looked down at the trash bag in the corner. Mama Joyce told me to take my garbage, while I was about to show them exactly what happens when you try to throw away the wrong thing. But as I started plotting, I turned the page one last time and saw something that made me freeze. It was a receipt clipped to the page, a receipt for a diamond ring. The date on it wasn't from last week. It was from 3 years ago. Malik hadn't just moved on recently. The entire foundation of our marriage was a lie from the very beginning. And what I found next proved that Vanessa wasn't just the other woman, she was the mastermind behind the whole scam. I stared at that receipt until the numbers blurred together. 3 years ago, Malik bought that diamond ring for Vanessa 6 months before he married me. I felt the air leave my lungs. I was sitting there, remembering our wedding day, how he told me he couldn't afford a real ring yet, so I wore a simple gold band I paid for myself. I told everyone it was romantic and minimalist. But the whole time, a VVS diamond was sitting in a velvet box waiting for Vanessa. This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. "He didn't just cheat on you, Naya," Jasmine said softly, reading over my shoulder. "He was auditioning you for the role of financier, and you got the part." I turned back to the journal. Nana Rose had clipped a printed email chain to the next page. It was between Malik and Vanessa. Vanessa: "Is she good for the loan?" Malik: "She's approved. Her credit is spotless. Once she co-signs the business loan, we can funnel the capital into the offshore account." Vanessa: "Good. Keep her happy. Play house for a few years. Once the vesting period ends on the stock options, we cut her loose." I felt sick, physically sick. I wasn't a wife to him. I was a credit score. I was an unsuspecting investor in my own destruction. "The vesting period ends this Friday," I whispered. "That's why he did it tonight. If he waits until Saturday, I'm legally entitled to half the stock." Jasmine let out a low whistle. "That's cold, ice cold. But wait, if Vanessa is the mastermind, why isn't she on the paperwork?" Because she has a record, I realized, the pieces finally clicking into place. She was fired from her last firm for embezzlement. She couldn't put her name on Nexus Flow, so she used Malik's clean slate and my money. I closed the journal. The tears were gone now, replaced by something much colder and much sharper. They thought I was just the help. They forgot that the help sees everything. They forgot that I was the one who set up the cloud servers. I was the one who created the admin passwords. Jasmine, I said, standing up, I need your laptop. I opened her computer and logged into the Nexus Flow backend. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Malik, arrogant, lazy Malik, had never changed the master admin password. Why would he? He thought I was too stupid to understand the tech side. He thought I just paid the bills. I bypassed the firewall and got into the internal scheduling system. There it was, the Nexus Flow Gala, a new era. Saturday night, 7 p.m. The guest list included venture capitalists, tech reporters, and my parents? I froze. He had invited my parents? I clicked on the invitation tracking. He hadn't just invited them, he had sent a car for them. He was going to announce the divorce to them at the party? No, he was going to spin the addiction story to them in person, surrounded by his success, to shame them into silence. He wanted to humiliate my entire bloodline. Oh, he's playing a dangerous game, Jasmine muttered, looking at the screen. Naya, look at the presentation file. I clicked on a file named Keynote Speech Final.pptx. It was the presentation for Saturday. I scrolled through the slides. Slide 1, our success. Slide 2, the future. Slide 10, I gasped. Slide 10 was a picture of me, but it was doctored. It showed me looking disheveled with bullet points listing financial mismanagement and personal struggles. He was going to use my face as the before picture to Vanessa's after. He was going to use my destruction as a marketing tool. I'm going to kill him, Jasmine growled, reaching for her keys. No, I said, stopping her. We don't get mad, we get even. I plugged in the USB drive Jasmine used for her DJ gigs. I'm going to download everything, the offshore accounts, the emails, the real receipts. And on Saturday, when he clicks to show slide 10, he's going to show the world exactly who he is. I hit download. The progress bar started moving. 10%, 20%. Suddenly, the screen flashed red. A warning box popped up. Unauthorized access detected. Tracing IP address. Naya, Jasmine shouted. They're tracking us. I need 2 more minutes, I yelled, watching the bar crawl to 50%. My phone started buzzing. It was Malik. He knew. Pick it up, Jasmine said, panic in her eyes. Buy us time. I answered, putting it on speaker. Naya? Malik's voice was smooth, mocking. Babe, give it up. You really want to go to jail for hacking on top of embezzlement? I'm not hacking, Malik. I just wanted to see the pictures of us one last time before you delete them. There was a silence on the other end. He bought it. His ego was so big he actually bought it. Pathetic, he laughed. You really are pathetic. Go ahead, look at the pictures. Remind yourself of what you lost. He hung up. The screen stopped flashing red. The download hit 100%. I pulled the USB drive out and looked at Jasmine. We got it. But we weren't safe yet. The hard part wasn't getting the truth. It was getting into that party before being thrown out by security before we could reveal it. And according to the guest list I just saw, the head of security was someone I knew, someone who hated me almost as much as Mama Joyce did. The head of security was Marcus, Big Marcus, as everyone called him. He was Malik's cousin, a man twice the size of a refrigerator and about half as smart. But he had a memory like an elephant, especially when it came to grudges. 2 years ago, I caught Marcus stealing laptops from the company inventory. Instead of firing him, Malik laughed it off and said I was being too uptight. Marcus had hated me ever since. If he saw my face at the door, he wouldn't just stop me, he'd probably enjoy dragging me out by my hair. This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. "We can't walk in the front door, Naya," Jasmine said, pacing her small living room. "Marcus has a list of banned faces, and yours at the top in bold red ink." "I know," I said, my mind racing, "but the event needs food, right? Malik demanded a 5-course meal for 300 people. Jasmine's eyes lit up. She snapped her fingers. "My cousin Tasha runs Taste of Soul Catering. They got the contract for the gala because they were the cheapest option that still looked fancy. Malik is too cheap to pay for the high-end staff." It was perfect. Irony really does have a sense of humor. Malik's cheapness was about to be his downfall. An hour later, we were at Tasha's warehouse. I traded my soaked clothes for a black button-down shirt, black slacks, and an apron. I pulled my hair back into a tight bun and put on a pair of thick-rimmed glasses Jasmine had in her glove box. I looked in the mirror. I didn't look like the CEO's wife anymore. I looked like the help, and that was exactly what I needed. "Keep your head down," Tasha warned me as she handed me a tray of champagne flutes. "If you get caught, I lose my contract. You got me?" "I promise. I just need to get to the AV booth." We rolled up to the venue, the Crystal Ballroom at the downtown hotel. It was dripping in luxury. Gold chandeliers, velvet ropes, and a red carpet that cost more than my first car. And standing right at the service entrance, checking staff badges, was Marcus. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was walking in a line of 10 waiters holding a crate of napkins to hide half my face. "Badge," Marcus grunted to the guy in front of me. He checked it. "Go." He was looking at everyone's face. He was actually doing his job for once. I stepped up. I held out the fake badge Tasha had printed for me. Name, Brenda. Marcus looked at the badge. Then he looked at me. He squinted. "You look familiar," he said, his voice deep and gravelly. He leaned in closer. I could smell the stale cigarette smoke on his jacket. I didn't speak. I knew my voice would give me away. I just coughed, a rough, sick-sounding hack, and pointed to my throat like I had laryngitis. "Man, don't be coughing on the guests," Marcus said, stepping back in disgust. "Get inside. Hurry up." I walked past him, my legs feeling like jelly. I was in. The ballroom was buzzing. People were laughing, drinking expensive wine, and shaking hands. I saw investors I had personally pitched to, people I had charmed for funding, all smiling and waiting to celebrate the man who had discarded me. I made my way toward the back, keeping to the shadows. I needed to spot the AV booth where the projector was controlled. But as I cut through the crowd, I froze. Near the front of the stage, at a small, wobbly table far away from the VIP section, sat an older couple looking uncomfortable and out of place. My parents. My dad was wearing his Sunday best, but the suit was 10 years old. My mom was holding her purse tightly in her lap, looking around nervously. They looked so small, so confused. And then I saw Mama Joyce walking toward them. She wasn't coming to greet them. She was followed by 2 security guards, and she had a look on her face that I knew too well. It was the look right before she crushed someone. I ducked behind a pillar, gripping my tray so hard the plastic nearly cracked. I was close enough to hear them. "Oh, look who it is," Mama Joyce said, her voice loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "The parents of the thief." My mom stood up, her voice trembling. "Excuse me, Joyce? Malik sent a car for us. He said he wanted you here to see the truth. We didn't want you to hear it on the news. We wanted you to see your daughter's shame in person." She snapped her fingers at the guards. Once the presentation starts, make sure they don't leave. We want them to see every single slide. My blood turned to lava. They weren't just going to ruin me, they were going to hold my parents hostage emotionally and force them to watch it. I wanted to run out there. I wanted to scream, but I knew if I made a scene now, Marcus would drag me out and Malik would win. I had to stick to the plan. I watched Mama Joyce walk away, feeling a surge of adrenaline I had never felt before. Enjoy your laugh, old woman, I thought, because in about 20 minutes, you're going to wish you were invisible. I turned to head for the AV booth, but I ran straight into a solid wall of a chest. "Whoa there, Brenda," a voice said. I looked up. It was Malik. He was staring right at me. He wasn't looking at my badge, he was looking at my eyes, and for a second I saw a flicker of recognition. Time stopped. I stood there holding a tray of half-empty champagne glasses, looking into the eyes of the man who had promised to love me forever, the same man who was currently trying to destroy my life. Malik squinted at me, his brow furrowing. He tilted his head, studying my face behind the thick glasses. "I said, do I know you?" he asked, his voice dropping an octave. "You look like—" This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. If I spoke, he'd know my voice instantly. If I ran, security would tackle me. I had to play the one role Malik never respected enough to notice, the invisible servant. I dropped my gaze to the floor, hunched my shoulders, and mumbled, "Sorry, sir, just trying to clear the glasses. My first day." I made my voice sound small, terrified, and uneducated. Malik stared for one more second, then scoffed. "Yeah, clearly. Look at this tie," he muttered, flicking the collar of my uniform. "Tacky. Make sure you don't drop anything on the guests. These suits cost more than your life." He turned his back on me as soon as Vanessa called his name from across the room. "Babe, the investors are waiting." "Coming, Bee," he shouted back, his voice changing instantly from cruel to charming. He walked away without a second glance. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. His arrogance was his blind spot. He couldn't imagine his pathetic ex-wife having the guts to be in the same room, let alone disguised as the help. I didn't waste another second. I weaved through the crowd, moving toward the back of the ballroom where the AV booth stood on a raised platform. This was the nerve center. This was where the projector— Time stopped. I stood there holding a tray of half-empty champagne glasses, looking into the eyes of the man who had promised to love me forever, the same man who was currently trying to destroy my life. Malik squinted at me, his brow furrowing. He tilted his head, studying my face behind the thick glasses. "I said, do I know you?" he asked, his voice dropping an octave. "You look like—" This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. If I spoke, he'd know my voice instantly. If I ran, security would tackle me. I had to play the one role Malik never respected enough to notice, the invisible servant. I dropped my gaze to the floor, hunched my shoulders, and mumbled, "Sorry, sir, just trying to clear the glasses. My first day." I made my voice sound small, terrified, and uneducated. Malik stared for one more second, then scoffed. "Yeah, clearly. Look at this tie," he muttered, flicking the collar of my uniform. "Tacky. Make sure you don't drop anything on the guests. These suits cost more than your life." He turned his back on me as soon as Vanessa called his name from across the room. "Babe, the investors are waiting." "Coming, Bee," he shouted back, his voice changing instantly from cruel to charming. He walked away without a second glance. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. His arrogance was his blind spot. He couldn't imagine his pathetic ex-wife having the guts to be in the same room, let alone disguised as the help. I didn't waste another second. I weaved through the crowd, moving toward the back of the ballroom where the AV booth stood on a raised platform. This was the nerve center. This was where the projector was controlled. The booth was dark, filled with blinking lights and tangled wires. A guy with headphones, a young kid probably, an intern, was sitting there scrolling on TikTok, ignoring the monitors. I walked up the steps, holding a fresh glass of sparkling water on my tray. "Whiskey and Diet Coke," I whispered, placing the glass next to his mixer board. "He said you need to stay sharp." The kid looked up, surprised. "Oh, thanks. Is he mad?" "No, just specific," I said. "Actually, he wants me to check the file setup. He's paranoid about the fonts loading wrong." The kid shrugged, taking a sip of the water. "Go ahead. It's the file named nexusgala.final on the desktop. I'm just here to hit play when he gives the signal." I leaned over the console. My hands were shaking, but I forced them to be steady. I saw the file, nexusgala.final. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the USB drive. I plugged it into the back of the tower. A small window popped up. Copying files. I looked at the stage. Malik was already walking up to the podium. The lights in the ballroom were dimming. A spotlight hit him, and the crowd erupted in applause. My parents were sitting in the front row, looking like they were at a funeral. Mama Joyce was whispering something to my mother, probably another insult. 50% complete. "Welcome, everyone," Malik's voice boomed over the speakers. "Tonight isn't just a celebration, it's a revelation." 75% complete. "Hey," the AV kid said, frowning. "What are you doing? We start in 10 seconds. "Just fixing a glitch," I lied, sweat beading on my forehead. 99% complete. "And to show you where we are going," Malik raised his hand, "we have to look at where we came from." 100% complete. I yanked the USB out just as the kid reached for the mouse. "Wait," I whispered to the kid, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Use the file named nexusgala.true. He just updated it." The kid looked confused. "True? He didn't tell me that." "Do you want to be the one to tell Malik you played the old version?" I hissed. The kid's eyes went wide. He quickly double-clicked the file I had just uploaded. "Ladies and gentlemen," Malik shouted, flashing his $1,000,000 smile, "let's look at the numbers." He snapped his fingers. The kid hit the spacebar. On the massive screen behind Malik, 20 feet tall and crystal clear, the first slide appeared. I stepped back into the shadows, a cold smile forming on my face, because it wasn't a graph, and it wasn't the fake photo of me looking like an addict. The room went dead silent. The applause died instantly. Malik was still smiling, looking out at the audience, waiting for the oohs and ahs. He didn't realize that behind him, the screen was displaying a text conversation between him and Vanessa titled, "How to Steal the Startup Funds from Naya." But that wasn't the worst part. As the silence stretched, Malik finally noticed that people weren't looking at him with admiration, they were looking at him with horror. He turned around slowly to look at the screen, and that's when I signaled the AV kid to hit play on the video. Malik's face turned a color I didn't even know existed, somewhere between ash gray and sick green. He stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, but no sound came out. The massive text on the screen behind him was sharp and undeniable. "Vanessa. Keep her happy. Play house for a few years. Once the vesting period ends, we cut her loose." This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. "Turn it off!" Malik finally screamed, his voice cracking. He waved his arms frantically at the AV booth. "It's a glitch." Malik's face turned a color I didn't even know existed, somewhere between ash gray and sick green. He stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, but no sound came out. The massive text on the screen behind him was sharp and undeniable. "Vanessa. Keep her happy. Play house for a few years. Once the vesting period ends, we cut her loose." This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. "Turn it off!" Malik finally screamed, his voice cracking. He waved his arms frantically at the AV booth. "It's a glitch! We've been hacked! Cut the feed!" But the AV kid, terrified by Malik's screaming, fumbled with the controls. Instead of stopping it, he accidentally turned the volume up. The video file I had queued up began to play. It was a recording from the security camera in our own living room, footage I had pulled from the cloud backup Nana Rose had saved. On screen, Malik and Vanessa were sitting on my couch, drinking my expensive wine. "She actually thinks I'm working late," the on-screen Malik said, laughing so hard he spilled his drink. "She's picking up an extra shift at the warehouse right now to pay for the new server." "She's a useful idiot," Vanessa's voice rang out through the ballroom, crisp and clear. "But are you sure the offshore accounts are hidden? If she hires a forensic accountant—" "Naya?" On-screen Malik sneered. "Naya can barely afford a calculator. She trusts me. That's her problem." The gasp that went through the crowd sucked all the air out of the room. I looked down at the front row. My mother had her hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of shame this time, but tears of shock. My dad was gripping his chair, staring at Malik with a look that promised violence. Mama Joyce was standing up, waving her purse at the screen. "Lies! It's AI! It's a deep fake!" she shrieked. "My son is a good man!" Malik grabbed the podium, sweating profusely. "Ladies and gentlemen, please! This is a competitor trying to sabotage our launch! Security, get to the booth!" Marcus, the head of security, started sprinting toward the back of the room. He looked up at the booth, his eyes locking onto me. He knew. "You," Marcus bellowed, pointing a thick finger at the glass window. "Open this door!" I knew I had about 30 seconds before Marcus kicked the door down. I could have run. I could have slipped out the back exit and let the video do the work. But I was done running. I grabbed the microphone that was connected to the Voice of God system, the speakers that override everything else in the room. "It's not a deep fake, Malik," I said into the mic. My voice boomed from every corner of the ballroom. It echoed off the crystal chandeliers. Malik froze on stage. He knew that voice. He had heard it every morning for 3 years. He looked up, shielding his eyes against the spotlight. "Naya?" I stepped out of the shadows of the booth and walked to the edge of the balcony overlooking the ballroom. I took off the thick glasses. I pulled the hair tie out of my bun and let my hair fall. I ripped off the Brenda name tag and dropped it. It fluttered down like a feather, landing on a table of stunned investors. "You told everyone I was an addict," I said into the mic, my voice steady and cold. "You told them I was a thief. You told them I was garbage that needed to be taken out." I signaled the kid to advance the slide. The screen changed again. This time, it wasn't a video. It was a bank statement. Titan Holdings via Nexus Flow, a transfer of $2.5 million. And right next to it, a document showing the true owner of the intellectual property, Nia Williams. "But you forgot who filed the original patent, Malik," I said, looking down at him. "You were the face. I was the founder. And you also forgot one other thing." Malik was shaking his head, backing away from the podium as his investors started standing up, phones out, recording everything. "Nia, stop! We can talk about this." "I don't want to talk," I said. "I just want you to meet the real guest of honor." I pointed to the main double doors at the back of the room. Everyone turned. Malik turned. Mama Joyce turned. The doors swung open, and who walked in made Malik's knees finally give out. He collapsed right there on the stage because the person walking through those doors was supposed to be in a hospital bed, unable to speak. But she wasn't in bed, and she definitely had something to say. It was Nana Rose. She wasn't lying in the bed where they had left her. She was sitting in a wheelchair, pushed by none other than my best friend, Jasmine. But as soon as the wheelchair cleared the doorway, Nana Rose did something that made Mama Joyce drop her purse on the floor. She stood up. This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. A collective gasp ripped through the room. For 6 months, Malik and Mama Joyce had told everyone that Nana Rose was gone, that her mind had turned to mush after the stroke. They had used her silence to take control of the family trust. They had used her condition as an excuse to kick me out, claiming the stress was too much for her. But Nana Rose stood tall. She was leaning on a cane, wearing her Sunday church hat and a look that could peel paint off the walls. "Mama?" Mama Joyce whispered, her voice trembling so hard the microphone on the stage picked it up. "But the doctor said—" "The doctor said I needed rest," Nana Rose interrupted, her voice strong and sharp, cutting through the silence. "He didn't say I was dead, and he certainly didn't say I was blind." She began to walk down the center aisle, step by slow, deliberate step. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. I watched from the balcony, tears welling up in my eyes. She had played the long game. She had pretended to be helpless just to see who would try to rob her grave before she was even in it. Malik looked like he was about to throw up. "Nana," he stammered, stepping off the stage to meet her, We were just doing what was best for the company, for the legacy." Nana Rose stopped right in front of him. She didn't hug him. She didn't smile. She lifted her hand and slapped him hard. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "Legacy," she spat. "You don't know the meaning of the word. I built this family's wealth cleaning floors and scrubbing toilets so you could go to college. And you used that education to become a thief." She turned to the stunned audience, her eyes scanning the investors who were still holding their champagne glasses, unsure if they should drink or run. "You all think you're in business with a genius," Nana Rose announced, pointing at Malik. "But the only genius in this room is the woman standing up there on the balcony." She pointed her cane up at me. "Nia Williams is the one who wrote the code. Nia is the one who balanced the books. And Nia is the only reason the ILS hasn't shut this boy down years ago. I signed over the rights to my estate to Nia 3 days ago. This building, that stage, the accounts of the company, they don't belong to Malik anymore. They belong to her." The room erupted. Journalists were shouting questions. Photographers were flashing their cameras blindingly. Mama Joyce rushed forward, grabbing Nana Rose's arm. "You can't do this. You're sick. You're confused. I have power of attorney." Nana Rose shook her off with surprising strength. You had power of attorney until I revoked it this morning with my lawyer present." She reached into her oversized handbag, the same kind of bag Mama Joyce loved to judge, and pulled out a thick stack of papers. She threw them at Mama Joyce's feet. "Read it and weep, Joyce. I'm taking back the house, I'm taking back the cars, and I'm definitely taking back my dignity." Malik fell to his knees, literally begging. "Nana, please, this launch, if we don't secure this funding, I'm ruined. I owe people money, dangerous people." "Then you'd better start filling out job applications," Nana Rose said coldly. "I heard the warehouse is hiring. Mia used to work there to pay your bills. Maybe you can see how the other half lives." I watched Malik crumble. The arrogance was gone. The golden child was just a scared little boy who got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. But amidst the chaos, I noticed something. Vanessa. While everyone was focused on the family drama, Vanessa had quietly stepped off the stage. She wasn't crying, she wasn't begging, she was backing away toward the emergency exit, clutching her designer bag tight against her chest. I narrowed my eyes. She wasn't just leaving, she was escaping, and she looked like she was carrying something heavy. "Jasmine!" I shouted from the balcony, pointing at the side door. "Don't let her leave!" Jasmine, who had been standing by the wheelchair, looked up, saw Vanessa, and sprinted. But Vanessa was fast. She kicked off her heels and bolted through the fire exit, slamming the door behind her. The alarm started blaring, adding to the madness. "She has the hard drives," I realized, my stomach dropping. "She has the offshore access keys in that bag." If Vanessa got away, she could drain the accounts before the lawyers could freeze them. She could disappear with millions, leaving me with a company that was technically bankrupt. I didn't think, I didn't take the stairs. I climbed over the balcony railing and jumped onto the closest table below, shattering plates and sending glasses flying. I didn't feel the pain in my ankles. I just ran. I burst through the emergency doors into the alleyway. It was dark, raining again, and empty. Or so I thought. A black SUV screeched around the corner, tires smoking. The passenger door flew open. Vanessa was running towards it. "Get in!" a voice shouted from the driver's seat. I sprinted harder than I had ever run in my life. "Vanessa!" I screamed. She turned, looked at me, and smiled. A wicked, victorious smile. She tossed her bag into the car and jumped in. But just as the car started to speed away, another set of headlights blinded us all from the other end of the alley. Blue and red lights. Sirens wailed. A police cruiser blocked the exit. The SUV slammed on the brakes, skidding on the wet pavement. Vanessa's head hit the dashboard. The driver cursed. I stopped running, panting in the rain, watching as the police doors opened. But the officer who stepped out wasn't a stranger. It was someone I hadn't seen in 10 years. And seeing his face made me realize that this night was about to take one final, terrifying turn that none of us saw coming. The rain was coming down harder now, blurring the flashing blue lights, but I knew that walk anywhere. The officer stepping out of the cruiser wasn't just any cop. It was David King. He was the guy I grew up with, my neighbor from back in the day who used to help me carry groceries. Malik used to make fun of him constantly. He called David Officer Broke and mocked him for working a civil servant job while Malik was chasing billions. Malik used to say guys like David were losers because they played by the rules. Well, look who was winning now. This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. David didn't even flinch as he approached the SUV with his weapon drawn. "Step out of the vehicle. Hands where I can see them." The driver, some hired muscle I didn't recognize, threw his hands up immediately. Vanessa, however, scrambled out of the passenger side, her expensive heels sinking into the mud. She looked like a drowned rat. The arrogance was completely gone, replaced by pure panic. "Officer, please!" Vanessa shrieked, her mascara running down her face. "I'm a victim here! He kidnapped me! I didn't do anything!" David didn't buy it for a second. He spun her around and slapped the handcuffs on her wrists. The sound of that metal clicking shut was the sweetest music I had ever heard. "Save it for the judge, Vanessa," David said calmly. "We have the wire transfers. We have the chat logs your friend Naya just uploaded. You're looking at grand larceny and corporate espionage." He handed Vanessa off to his partner and walked over to me. He looked at my soaked clothes, my messy hair, and then at the designer bag I had snatched from the front seat of the SUV. "You okay, Naya?" he asked, his voice soft, just like I remembered. "I am now," I said, letting out a breath that felt like it had been stuck in my chest for 3 years. "Thank you, David." "Don't thank me," he winked. "Thank your Nana Rose. She called the precinct 2 hours ago, told us exactly where to be and who to look for. That woman is a general." I looked back toward the hotel. They were dragging Malik out the side door. He wasn't walking tall anymore. He was slumped over, handcuffed, flanked by 2 officers. When he saw me standing there with David, he stopped fighting. I walked up to him. I needed him to look me in the eye one last time. "Naya," Malik pleaded, rain dripping off his nose. "Naya, baby, listen. We can fix this. I can explain. It was all her. Vanessa made me do it. She manipulated me." I laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. "You know, Malik, the sad part is I would have stayed. If you had just told me you were struggling, if you had just been honest, I would have helped you rebuild. I would have worked 3 jobs for you." I stepped closer, leaning into his ear. "But you didn't want a partner. You wanted a stepping stone. And you forgot that stones are hard to break." Naya nodded to the officers, and they shoved Malik into the back of the squad car. As the door slammed shut, I saw Mama Joyce being escorted out behind him, screaming that she was going to sue the entire police department. It was over. The bad guys were in chains. The money was safe. I watched the cars drive away, feeling a strange sense of calm. I thought that was the end of it. I thought the only thing left to do was file the divorce papers and move on. But I was wrong. Later that night, back at the house that was finally safe again, I sat down with Nana Rose and opened the designer bag Vanessa had tried to steal. Inside were the hard drives, yes, but underneath them was a thick, sealed manila envelope. It didn't have a bank logo on it, it had a hospital logo. And it had my name on it. I opened the seal, confused. It was a medical file, a DNA test, and a letter signed by Malik, dated 2 years ago. I read the first line and the room started to spin. I grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling over. Malik hadn't just stolen my money, he had stolen a secret about my own life, a secret so big it explained why my parents had looked so terrified at the gala. He had been holding this over their heads for years, and now that I knew, nothing about my past would ever be the same. My hand shook so hard, the papers rattled like dry leaves. I read the letter again. It was from a private clinic, addressed to Malik. The DNA test confirmed a match, but not for a disease. It was a maternity test. The letter attached to it wasn't written by a doctor. It was written by Malik, addressed to my parents. I know Nia is adopted. I know you never told her because you were afraid she'd look for her birth family. If you don't want me to tell her the truth and break your happy little family apart, you'll deposit $2,000 into my account every month. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. My parents weren't at the gala because they supported Malik. They were there because he had threatened them. He had been bleeding them dry for 3 years, taking their retirement money to keep a secret that wasn't even his to keep. This is where the story truly begins. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? Which country are you watching from? Leave a comment and let me know. And please hit that like button and subscribe to become part of the Family Fractures community for more inspiring stories. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I picked up the phone and called my mom. She answered on the first ring, sobbing. "Nia, baby, we're so sorry. We were just so scared of losing you." "Mom," I said, my voice breaking, "you could never lose me. Blood doesn't make a family, love does. And Malik used that love against us." That night, the last chain Malik had on me finally broke. He wasn't a businessman, he was a parasite, and I had just cut him off for good. 6 months later, the sun was shining over Atlanta, and for the first time in years, it felt warm. I walked into the conference room of Williams and Rose Tech, the company formerly known as Nexus Flow. The sign on the door had been changed the day I took over as CEO. I sat at the head of the table. Nana Rose sat to my right, looking sharper than ever in a bright red blazer. She was our honorary chairwoman, and nobody dared to be late to her meetings. "Let's look at the quarterly projections," I said, smiling at the team. The company was thriving. Once we cut the dead weight, Malik's luxury expenses, Vanessa's fake consulting fees, and the hush money payments, profits skyrocketed. We were actually building things now, not just hyping them up. As for the dead weight, justice had been swift. Because of the evidence I uploaded at the gala, Malik was charged with fraud, embezzlement, and extortion. He tried to blame Vanessa, and Vanessa tried to blame him. The judge didn't care. They both got 10 years. Last I heard, Malik was working in the prison laundry room washing clothes for 12 cents an hour. Mama Joyce fared no better. With Malik's assets frozen and the allowance I used to provide gone, the bank foreclosed on her house. I heard from a friend that she was working as a greeter at a discount store. I didn't laugh when I heard it. I didn't feel happy. I just felt nothing. She was a stranger to me now. The meeting wrapped up and I walked out to the lobby. Someone was waiting for me. David was leaning against the front desk holding 2 coffees. He wasn't in his uniform today. He was wearing a button-down shirt and jeans, looking relaxed. "Ready for lunch, Madam CEO?" he asked, grinning. "Always, officer, David," I teased. We had been taking things slow. After everything with Malik, I had to learn how to trust again. But David was patient. He didn't want my money, he didn't want my status, he just wanted to know if I was okay. And for the first time in a long time, I was. As we walked out the glass doors, I stopped for a second and looked at the reflection in the window. 6 months ago, I was standing in the rain with a garbage bag, believing I was trash. I thought my life was over. I thought I had lost everything. But Nana Rose was right. The trash bag didn't contain garbage. It contained the truth. And the truth didn't destroy me. It set me free. I realized then that Malik did me a favor. He pushed me off the cliff, thinking I would fall. He didn't know I could fly. If there is one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. When people try to throw you away, let them. When they try to bury you, remember that you are a seed. Don't let their betrayal turn you bitter. Let it turn you into something they can't touch. Malik wanted to embarrass me. Instead, he gave me the motivation to build an empire. If you've ever had to rebuild your life from scratch, or if you've ever been underestimated, share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters here. If this story spoke to you, please like the video, share it with a friend who needs hope, and subscribe to the Family Fractures. We are building a community of survivors, one story at a time. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't making them pay, it's living so well that you forget they even owe you. Until next time, stay strong.